Mr. Pocket, a multiversal being with godlike powers, needed heroes and villains for his quest to save the multiverse. But first, these champions would need to go on their own journey. Aiding this, he combined the two universes into one. We know these as the Marvel and DC universes. This event would be known as Union Day, and here we have stories of heroes and villains living their lives after Union Day. Before Union Day and the new history made by the fusion of the two universes, we have heroes and villains known to all, and some we've never seen before. Now let us dive into Tiger Tales Marvel and DC Unionverse.
The New Extraordinary Spider-Man. Chapter 5. Shocking Events. Logan sat on the edge of a building, his legs swaying back and forth, his mind racing. JJ was in the hospital, and Hunter was Captain Cold. Or was he? Spider-Man had fought Captain Cold a handful of times, and Hunter had Captain Cold's cold gun in his backpack. Logan did the calculations, and Hunter and Captain Cold was the same height and had the same body build. Their speech patterns were almost identical. Logan sat there with his fist clenched tightly. He was now angry, and he did not know what to do. His spiraling mind was snapped out of his spiral by the sudden sound of police sirens whirling down the street. Logan looked down and saw two police cars as they sped down. Logan stripped off his clothes and suited up. He equipped his wrist with his web shooters, and of course he added his bulletproof vest. He then pulled his mask over his face and he webbed his bag to the rooftop. As he left the building, he shot a web and swung over the pedestrians who walked along the sidewalk living their mundane lives. Spider-Man swung after the cars until they all came to a halt, and Spider-Man landed on one of the police cars. The police officers looked at Spider-Man and with a sigh of relief. "Thank God it's you. That's here, Spidey, these freak. It's practically another Electro," the police officer said. "Oh, great," Spider-Man moaned, hanging his head. The building in front of the police squad was a small surgery clinic which dabbed in private practices, and the window exploded as a young woman stepped out. Her skin was bright blue, her hair was short and spiked, and she wore a crop top with a short-sleeved leather jacket and a pair of black denim pants that were covered in decorative holes throughout. "Kneel before your new Electro," the girl yelled out with a cackle. "New Electro? Oh, come on, do not need this right now," Spider-Man called out. He jumped off the police car and landed a few feet from the new Electro. "Hey, Sparky Jr., gonna have to ask you to stop zapping everything just for a moment," Spider-Man quipped. "Oh, yes. This is what I'm after, the new Spider-Man. If I beat you, I'll be unstoppable," Electro hissed. She threw out her hands and a bolt of lightning rippled from her palm, crackling through the street. Spider-Man flipped to one side, dodging the bolt. It hit a shop sign that hung a couple stories up from the street. "Easy, we don't have to do this," Spider-Man hushed. "Please, Max Dillon was enemies of both Spider-Men for years. This is our legacy," Electro sneered. "Legacy, huh? Okay then." Spider-Man nodded. He ran at the new Electro, who threw a few more bolts of lightning. Spider-Man ducked and weaved through the shocking attacks as he shot a web which hit Electro in the chest. He pulled hard, pulling her off her feet. She soared through the air as Spider-Man threw out a fist and punched Electro in the face, throwing her back. She hit the ground and grunted in pain as Spider-Man shot several more web balls which hit Electro, sticking her to the ground. "Too easy," Spider-Man said with a heavy sigh. He walked over to Electro, whose vibrant, electrified blue skin diminished, revealing her true olive skin tone. "You got a name, kid?" Spider-Man asked. "Kid? I'm 20, and you sound like a kid yourself," Electro snapped as she tried to wriggle out of her web that stuck her to the ground. "I wouldn't try anything stupid if I was you," Spider-Man warned. Suddenly, his spider sense triggered. He still wasn't used to having his heightened senses scream at him every so often. Oftentimes, Logan thought he hadn't even got a super spider sense, but in that very moment, his head rang like fire alarms that had turned up to high volume in his skull. He turned around and he was hit with an ice blast. He was thrown off his feet. He flew over Electro and crashed into a wall as he slumped onto the ground. Now, Spidey, easy. She's new to the city," said a voice. A voice recently buried into Spider-Man's brain. He looked up and saw Captain Cold. He slowly climbed to his feet. The residue from the cold blast burnt through his bulletproof vest and was assaulting the fibers of his suit, allowing the cold to attack his skin. "Cold, "What are you doing here?" Spider-Man grunted through his teeth. "Why, I'm making new friends," Captain Cold said with a devilish grin. He aimed his cold gun down and fired it at the web encasing Electro. The web frozen solid, and Electro flexed her muscles again, and the web shattered like glass. Captain Cold held out his hand, and Electro took the offer and was pulled to her feet. "Stick with me, Sparkles," Captain Cold sneered. Electra nodded, her skin ignited with shocking flare once again, her skin returning to its bright blue state once more, as electricity danced around her fingertips. Spider-Man stood and stared at the duo, his body ached and his mind swirled. A part of him wanted to call out Hunter's name, watch as the man under the goggles lose his ego. Another part of him wanted to remove his mask and let Captain Cold see who he was facing, a friend from his college. Another part of him wanted to punch him so goddamn hard in the face over and over again. JJ was in the hospital in critical condition, and Hunter's running around playing wannabe villain, which infuriated Spider-Man. Spider-Man clenched his fists and then launched himself into the air. Electra released an electricity blast from her palm, and Captain Cold fired his cold gun at the same time. Spider-Man dodged both the blasts as he landed on the wall a few stories up. Two police officers jumped from cover and opened fire. Their guns popped and bullets flew. Electro turned around and held both hands up. Electricity formed around the two villains in a dome shape, and the bullets bounced off the static shield. Captain Cold turned around and fired his cold gun. One officer was hit. Ice formed around his torso as he dropped to the ground. "No, stop it!" Spider-Man barked. He launched off the wall and swung from a web. He swung towards the other officer, who ducked down, trying and praying not to get hit by the cold blast. Spider-Man swung over to the officer, grabbed the man by the shirt and pulled him up into the air, and swung him across the street as he dropped the officer on the ground as he landed. "Get to safety!" Spider-Man ordered. Electro then dropped her shield. Throughout both hands, a surge of electricity erupted from both her palms, and Spider-Man flipped over the electrical blasts. He landed and turned around and rapidly fired his web shooters. Web bullets hit Electro several times. She staggered back, but Captain Cold aimed his cold gun and shot an icy ray beam. It hit the ground and he dragged it up. The beam formed a wall of ice, blocking the web bullets. Spider-Man shot a web, pulled himself over the icy wall, but as he landed on the ground, he found no trace of Captain Cold or Electro. "God damn it!" Spider-Man grunted. Spider-Man landed on the roof. He pulled his mask off, his chest was tight, his breath was heavy as he closed his eyes and allowed the chilled New York night breeze hit his face. His mind danced through many layers of thought. He wanted to speak to his mother, who would easily make everything feel safe and normal without ever needing to know what was truly wrong. But she was in a coma, injured by the Putty invasion. Amelia, he could easily speak to her. She was his best friend, and the only other hero that he could tag team with. But she was in Africa, visiting Wakanda for her history course. Then there was Hunter, another one of his friends, who turned out to be Captain Cold. Logan had only dealt with 3 major villains solo. Captain Cold, who just happened to be Hunter, Venom, but he had not seen Venom for a few nights now. And then there was this new Electro. Logan had no idea who she was, or she had any ties to the original Electro, Max Dillon. He had still had a lot of coursework to do, and not only that, but the only one person in the world he could talk to was nowhere to be seen. Miles Morales, the second Spider-Man, as he was out there somewhere doing something. Logan dropped to his knees and let out an almighty scream, which echoed throughout the sky and became lost within the clouds. He looked down at his mask as tears strolled down his face. Captain Cold and Electro walked into Captain Cold's lair, which was an abandoned train station, underground the city neighbouring the sewer system. "Cool digs, I guess," Electro hissed as she powered down and slumped onto an old and battered couch. "It'll do for now, as we gather up the others," Captain Cold replied as he walked up to a wooden table with a map of New York on it. "Sorry, gather up the others?" Electro asked with a questionable tone. "I want to make the new Sinister Six," Captain Cold got out. "Yeah, but Captain Cold was never part of the original Sinister Six," Electro chuckled. "Precisely. There have been many versions and I want to make the best," Captain Cold said with a smile. Electro stood up and walked over to Captain Cold as she held out her hand. "Name's Monique," she said. Captain Cold pulled his hood down and slid his goggles off his forehead. He then shook Monique's hand. "Call me Hunter," Hunter said with a wicked grin. Then they both turned to the map and started making the plans. The Venom symbiote slithered closer to the house that smelt like the new Spider-Man. It trailed up the wall and slithered into the gap of the open window, and it crawled across the room and hid in the open coat cupboard. It felt rather weak. It had been without a host now for several days, and eventually Spider-Man swung in and landed in the room. He removed his mask and pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Spider-Man sighed as he started rambling about Captain Cold, how he knew his identity, and he was outraged. He asked for help and then hung up. He threw his phone on the bed. At this point, Venom had been hellbent on revenge. He wanted to kill the new Spider-Man, as he replaced one of his old hosts, Peter Parker, and there was no sign of Eddie Brock or Flash Thompson. It would even take Matt Gargan at this point. He originally wanted to harm the new Spider-Man. But maybe he was wrong. Maybe they could make a deal. He could help Spider-Man take on this Captain Cold fellow. Then in return, maybe this new Spider-Man can help Venom find Eddie, Peter, maybe Flash Thompson. Venom sat hidden in the bedroom of the new Spider-Man, waiting for the right moment to engage with him.
What you have just listened to is a product created by the Three Ranger Bros Studio.
Hosted by three cosplaying fathers who
happen to be massive geeks of all sorts of fandoms.
They are Mark, the Red Cornish Ranger,
Cosplay Dude 637,
and Tai Tiger.
The studio covers different types of YouTube videos, TikToks, podcasts, and live streams.
If you wish to find out who cosplays who, the YouTube channels, the TikTok accounts, and the podcasts, and all of the other social media platforms,
please go to the 3rangerbrostudios.com.